It's Dennis Hoiberg here, ringing from, speaking from Darwin. Welcome to this resilience, session on maintaining emotional resilience. I'm really excited to do this webinar because this is the first time we've done it, and this idea came from some work that we were doing down at Jamestown with ORM and with the GRDC. And I floated the idea in Jamestown of who would like to participate in the webinar. About 7 people put up their hand, and I thought, well, that's pretty exciting. But the question was, what's a webinar? But quite a few people put up their hand that showed some interest, and then Gavin from ORM said, look, we'd be keen to support it with you. So I'm very much indebted to Gavin and also the GRDC for getting behind this webinar, and we hope that you gain enjoyment out of it and some value out of it. I'm still receiving emails and requests to attend this webinar, as well as some emails from people saying that they can't attend, they would like to get a copy of it. Can I let people know that we are recording this webinar, and we will be able to distribute it for those people who would like a copy of it. Okay, hopefully right now what you can see in front of your screen is our front screen about maintaining emotional resilience. Lessons Learned Consulting designed this program some while ago, and we've had the opportunity of working with various communities around Australia on this topic. And one of the observations we made was, first of all, the overwhelming reaction we got from people as to this message, and the whole idea of this webinar is to give people ongoing support and some level of reinforcement of the message. Over the next little while, and I'm planning for the webinar to go for about 40 minutes, I want to structure the webinar want to present a couple of key messages about what we try and do under this topic of resilience. What it is and critically what it isn't, why it's important, what to look for. Then I want to give some practical strategies, and I'll end the session off with some tips. Now, I just want to reinforce, I guess, the emphasis that we put on resilience, because people at Lessons Learned Consulting are absolutely committed to working with you in providing some strategies for you to achieve goals, achieve business success, achieve personal success, and also achieve family success. For me to sit in this room in Darwin and now be able to speak to people around Australia, but also people from overseas, and I welcome people from Kenya who have responded, to our friends and brothers and sisters in New Zealand, and I think you'll find that as I talk about this topic of resilience, it is cross-culture. It's not only an Australian issue, but I think it's a human issue. A little bit about Lessons Learned Consulting, if I may. We are a management consulting organisation. The types of services that we offer in the space of resilience are in a series of webinars around each of the skills to develop a resilient mindset, and our plank strategy, which I'll refer to briefly. We also will be offering workbooks to give people practical skills at an individual, family, team, organisational and community level to develop resilience. We'll be offering CDs and DVDs outlining resilience strategies, and in that series of DVDs and CDs, we will be providing some practical skills. We'll also be interviewing people who are able to, who have got a story to share with us. We also offer training presentations within organisations and communities. And as an organisation, we're very busy, and that's what I'm doing up in Darwin this week, working with communities and organisations on this topic. And we also offer coaching and support to individuals, families and organisations, not only about resilience but about change. And we've got some very qualified coaches that are able to work with people around Australia. Which of course brings me to my next point, and that is my personal coaches listening to this presentation. And Lisa has just emailed me or messaged me asking if I've got a questions section. And I'm able to take questions and comments and I'll certainly try and answer those questions as we continue through my presentation. If I can't answer those questions, what I will make a commitment to do is to come back to the individual asked the question by the end of this week. That's the other good thing, I guess, about recording this. I can go back to my office, and my coach can go through and tell me how often I've done things wrong. So that's what we do. There are a couple of key messages that underpin this resilience message that I give to communities and individuals wherever I talk about this. And the key messages are these. First of all, you have to learn to look after yourself. Because if you can't look after yourself, there's the truth in my game, and that's this. If you can't look after yourself, can't look after your business, can't look after your mates, and you can't look after your family. And the hierarchy I always use, if you can't look after yourself, can't look after your family. And for most of us, mate, family is the most important thing. Can't look after yourself, can't look after your family, can't look after your mates. And if you can't look after yourself, can't look after your family, can't look after your mates, you can't look after your businesses. And sometimes people say to me that this thing about resilience is a very airy-fairy concept. It isn't. In our experience, it goes to your fundamental ability to run your business. And many people who are listening to this presentation either provide service to clients or are self-employed. And you would know the importance of being able to look after yourself in order to provide good quality service. That's where the resilience comes in. There's another saying I use, and that is, there but for the grace of God go I. I'm sure people who have listened to this webinar have either, if you're a typical audience, you've either experienced it or you know people who have experienced it. This stuff is 6 degrees of separation. I often say to people that if you haven't experienced it yet, it's just luck. Especially in our game, the topic of resilience will become important as we go. It's not how other people see, it's how you see yourself, and that's this thing about your own self-talk and your own self-image. One of the things we've learned, the lessons learned, is that in terms of providing good quality service, you've got to have a positive self-image and positive self-talk. And I'll give you a few techniques before we leave here tonight, as well as other techniques that are available to you through us for improving your thinking about how you see yourself. Human spirit's a wonderful thing. The thing I like, the reason I like working with, I guess, the agricultural space as well as other sectors, both in region and rural Australia and around metropolitan Australia and overseas, is that this thing called the human spirit. And I encourage people to believe in a thing called the human spirit, because if you can believe in that, you'll get through change. And it's just this thing about belief. And what Lessons Learned is trying to do is not only give you these messages, but also provide you with some of the strategies to work on your human spirit. And critically, folks, the one thing I do want to say to you in our sector is, you know, the word normal, I want you to forget that word. Delete it from your memory bank, delete it from your dictionary. Because the more that I work in this space and with people, I often say, people often say to me, Dennis, this ain't normal. I say, well, I don't know what is normal. What is normal, you know? And I also always worry about people who say to me, what is normal, or this ain't normal, because they're also saying to me, I don't want to be here. I want to be somewhere else in my world where it's normal. Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes in life you get yourself in a situation that it looks like a dog, smells like a dog, barks like a dog, scratches like a dog. It's a dog. We need to work with you in terms of helping you deal with that stuff. So there's 5 key messages. Let's talk about what we mean by resilience, and also what we mean by this underlying message of resilience. I've worked with good organisations, I guess, in my journey about this topic, and I sometimes worry about the way that we talk about this topic of resilience, and ultimately linked in topics about depression, mental wellness, and so forth. I often hear people talking about you know, anxiety, sadness, and depression. I observe people when they talk about anxiety, sadness, and depression, and the more that people have talked about it, they become more sad, more anxious, more depressed. One of the realities of this world, I think, is that life's tough, and we just need to deal with it. What this resilience topic to me is about is having a choice, making a choice at a personal level about how we're going to deal with it. And I think all the strategies that we talk about and all the resources we're trying to build for you is about giving people choices in terms of how to deal, choices and strategies about how to deal with some of the challenges in their life. Before I tell you what I see resilience as, I want to tell you what I think it isn't. First of all, resilience is not about it isn't only if you're suffering depression, clinically diagnosed depression or any other type of depression. Resilience strategies isn't only about when things are going bad. Resilience strategies isn't about when you've lost the plot or all those other words that I hear people say, or spit the dummy, or other words I hear people say. It isn't about pulling your socks up and getting back on the horse. It isn't that. And critically, folks, it isn't about this next one. I don't need to read that out, but it isn't about toughening up. That's why I reacted a little bit to the ABC interview I did the other day, resulting from the GRDC episode in Jamestown, where it was titled, Dennis Hoiberg tells farmers to toughen up. That's the last thing I would ever say to a farmer or a person in regional rural Australia. It's not about toughening up, it's about having strategies to manage your life. And what it is to me, it's about this bouncing forward stuff. I used to call it bounce back until I started working with a few organisations and a few families, and I recognise that those people who are able to accept what's happened and move forward, as opposed to grieving about what's happening and blaming issues, were not as resilient. I mean, I still work with people who consider the global financial crisis of a couple of years ago as a personal insult to them, as a personal attempt by someone over in Europe to make them work harder, to make sure they couldn't sell their farm or their business. It isn't. It's about the ability to bounce forward. Understanding in our life we're all going to be challenged sometime. It's also understanding that we're all going to react differently to that challenge. Understanding at a personal level that our signs and symptoms might be reducing. And recognising sometimes bad things happen to good people. But hey, you still remain a good person. But then knowing the best way for it to ride life's ups and downs so people feel well, energised and in control. That's what I mean by about resilience. So when you're listening to me, folks, I want you to be asking yourself, and if you're sitting there with your partner, with your kids, with your mates, ask yourself, how well do you cope with those issues? How well are you able to bounce back? How well are you able to recognise your own signs and symptoms in yourself and then in your mates, and how willing are you to have that conversation? Why is Lessons Learnt so passionate about this topic of resilience? I've showed some of you this in the past. I just want to show it to you very quickly. It's a cut down version, but this is why we're so passionate. We know every year the statistics tell us 1 in 5 Australians will experience a mental illness. If I'm looking at my little counter here, there's something like 76 attendees at this list. If I'm not good at maths, that's about 15 people. Is that right? 15 people who are listening to me at this time will experience some form of mental illness this year. We also know 20% of Australians will experience depression sometime in our lives. Ladies and gentlemen, who knows people in your world who've been diagnosed with depression at a clinical level? And as I was reminded by Professor Ian Hickey, that's only the people who have been diagnosed. There's a high level of other levels of depression that are never actually diagnosed, that people just battle through. 13% of Australians will experience anxiety disorder sometime in our life. Suicide still remains the major cause of death in Australia, accounting for more deaths in Australia than transport accidents. May I ask you a question? Who here is listening to me who knows someone who died through suicide? If you do, my heart bleeds for you. That's why we're so honoured to work in this space, because our objective is to work with communities, with families, with individuals, to not let people get to that situation, to give people the strategies and skills to be able to cope with it. And that's why I'm always grateful to people like GRDC, like Suncorp Agricultural Bank, like ORM, like some other clients who take me around and let me talk to their clients, because they've given me the opportunity to put on the table this most difficult topic and to talk about it in a very practical, meaningful way. If you have been touched by suicide, let me give you some statistics from the Australian Bureau of Statistics that came out in March this year. 2010, you can see the statistic in front of you, 2,361 deaths by suicide, nearly 5 a day. The Australian Bureau of Statistics and the Mental Health Council of Australia also tells us that those statistics are typically, the unofficial rate is probably a little bit higher than the official figures, somewhere like 30 to 40%. If anyone here is listening to me who are actively involved in the rescue services, CFA, fire emergency services, and first of all I say thank you and thank you for that and good congratulations. The other thing is that you know those statistics are also too low because they don't include single person accidents. We also know, and there's the reference for you, we also know that the PBS told us PBS is the Pharmaceutical Benefit Scheme, told us in 2009-2010 there's something like 5.4 million prescriptions for antidepressives drug issued. Who knows someone in your world has been issued with antidepressants? Now, I've got no issue with antidepressants. My issue is we need to have a strategy to be able to cope with people, to help people cope at a different level. We know the cost of Australian business is about $6.5 billion. These are the given facts. And as I keep saying to my audience, it's very analogous to having a bad back in the 1980s. When you had a bad back in the 1980s, you used to go to the doctors who would say to you, take a pill, go home and lie down. Nowadays, they're more likely to say lose weight, stretch, Pilates, exercise, etc. And I'm not having a crack at the AMA because we work with the AMA on this. The AMA will say to us, Dennis, if you've got a broken head, broken arm, broken leg, we've got it. We know how to deal with you. If you've got a broken soul, broken spirit, we're not quite sure what to do, hence the antidepressives. Nowadays, we go to the doctor and say, doctor, I'm a bit teary, can't concentrate, can't sleep. Unfortunately, we might be given the same advice about taking drugs. And again, I'm not against it. It's part of the strategy, but it's not the strategy. And folks, all I'm trying to say to you is that all this means to me is we just have to be resilient in normal life. And then life happens to us. And then life happens to us. And by that, what I mean is, you know, in normal life, and then the world happens to us. We, financial issues, relationship issues, health issues, family issues, farming issues, weather issues, economic issues. We just have to be resilient in normal life. And forgetting about, and that's why I say this is not just for when people are going through difficult times. I need you to take this stuff seriously and apply it to your world and think every day you get out of bed, right, what I'm going to do today to help me, my family, my friends be resilient. And look, here's some resources from Lessons Learned Consulting that I might be able to share with people. Folks, that's the reason why we're doing this webinar. You know, that's why we're doing this webinar. We want to give people these ideas. We want to contribute. Our attitude is if we can give, we must, and that's what we're trying to do. I said in that little blurb that mental health is a state of well-being. There's a definition of mental health. 1 in 5 Australians will experience mental health. As the kids say today, it's about being comfortable in your own skin. And it refers to about emotional, psychological and spiritual health. And that's how the World Health Organization handles it. Here's my first practical clue for your resilience. What happens, folks, is when we go through change, feelings get out of balance, and they remain so for what we call an extended period of time. Causes the person significant impairment, affects the ability to function, then becomes what we call a clinical problem. What do we mean by the extended period of time? I guess the real answer is it will depend on the individual, and I think that's correct. But there is a benchmark in which we try and look for. And here are some key questions that I want you to start asking people about if you are concerned for them. First of all, sleep. How's your sleep? Good quality sleep is fundamental to our resilience. And that's why I think the agricultural sector, the agribusiness sector, is an absolute Monty is so important that we have resilience because in some of our sectors, grain and the broad acres, so forth, it's dairy, it's actually against good quality sleep. Next question. If it is disturbed, for how long? When we start talking about the disturbed period of time, we talk about the 14 days. How long has this been going on for? If it's 14 days, I want you to ask another question, and the question is this. How are you feeling about yourself, your circumstance, and your future? And if you are low, and if the person you're worried about, or you yourself are low on that level, then look, there is some level of depression. There's 2 types of depression, biological depression and what we call reactive depression. Biological is when it's part of your DNA, it's who you are. And we need to talk to you about some of those strategies. Another form of depression we call reactive depression. Reactive depression is when there's a major trauma in your life, a death, a loss of a relationship, loss of a business, loss of friendship, bankruptcy. All these things occur and we don't react to them very well. Yeah, a bad season. I was talking to a farmer up in Moree, and he made the point, Dennis, he said, I almost slept with that crop. I slept with it, and within a couple of days of taking it off, I lost it, you know. And it was just classic reactive depression. And he wasn't clinically depressed, I guess, but he was very sad. And then the next question we ask is, what do you do? What do we do, and what help do you need to help feel better about these issues? Care for people, folks. You don't need, we need to be supportive. We often say in Australia that we're good with our mates and so forth, and I think that's right. And I'm sure that's so in New Zealand, Kenya and Papua New Guinea. But it's about asking those questions. How's your sleep? If you disturb, for how long? How are you feeling about yourself? What do you do? And how can we help you? I'm often asked, what does this feel like? What do I look for, Dennis? Part of my, I guess, my strategy to you is we've got to learn to crack the code. And part of the code is thinking about what are the emotions, thoughts, behaviours, physical symptoms that people might experience. And in that slide in front of you, you'll see some of those emotions: sadness, anxiety, guilt, mood swings, lack of emotions, helplessness, hopelessness. You'll see those thoughts of frequent self-criticism, self-blame, pessimism. And I'll let you read the rest. Indecisiveness, confusion. I'll see those things about behaviour, crying spells, withdrawal from others. Let's just think about that withdrawal from others. This is how you use this particular slide. If that's the behaviour, what's the thinking behind withdrawal from others? What do you think people are actually thinking and feeling? Because if we can crack that code, in terms of why people are withdrawing from others, then we can have a conversation. We can have a conversation about why that behaviour exists, and that's how you use this symptom. Try this slide. Try and crack the code, because if you can't crack the code, it's like me speaking to an Italian. I wouldn't understand a word they're saying, and I'll tell you what, they wouldn't understand a word I'm saying neither. So then the physical symptoms: chronic fatigue, going back to behaviours, neglect of responsibilities, loss of interest in personal appearance, loss of motivation. Symptoms: chronic fatigue, lack of sleep, sleeping too much or too little, all of those signs, unexplained aches and pains. If those symptoms last for a week, for more than 2 weeks, for no explainable reason, that's the one I want to emphasise. No explainable reason. Talk to someone. Talk to your doctor. Talk to your best mate. Talk to your pastor. Ring Lessons Learned Consulting, and let's have a conversation about it. We prefer to have a conversation with you rather than not. How are we going, folks? You all listening? I should actually have a bit of a technique to get something from you, but I don't know how to do it. But are we still going it? Oh, good. Thank you. I've just got to sign. Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Good. So there's some of the, look, flag for you, the 14 days. I want you to think about how you're feeling about yourself. Look, all of us are going to have bad days. Oh, thank you, Brett. All of us are going to have bad days. It's D-E-N-N-I-S, by the way, John. So all of us are going to have bad days. So don't overcook it. Don't overcook this stuff. Thinking about the flag for yourself, this 14-day rule. Ask the question, how long you've been thinking about this? How long you've been feeling about this? No, I can't hear you, Simon. I've actually got you on mute. But if you want to leave me a message, do that, and I'll come back to you after the presentation. I can't read and I can't read and do it at the same time. Sorry, I'm a bloke. So think about this, the flag for you, the 14-day rule. Think about how you can ask questions, observe your mates, observe your family, and within your family, teach your family, ask this stuff, because then they'll talk to their mates, and you're all part of the community. Some of you people hopefully would have read that article I wrote for the South Australian No-Till journal, and in that I'm starting to talk about how you look after your mates, especially during spray season, when we know people are going to be away from your family. We know people are going to be away, and that's a family issue, do you see? It's not just an individual issue, it's a family. And the family issue needs to think about how we do it, how you're going to deal with those things. All good? How are we doing? Great, thank you very much, thank you. Before I start talking about strategies, I just want to talk about the slide in front of you. See this, the flight or fight reaction. And the way I use this in terms of the dialogue that I want you to have with people, thank you, Brett, thanks, John, is this stimulus and response. I'm sure you would have seen something like this in your professional development. The way we use this is for every stimulus there's a response. If we are resilient, and if you've got the competence and the confidence, you're going to display what we call problem-solving behaviour. You will still be in bad times. You will still have difficult times. You will still be challenged. You will not always win. You'll still lose, whatever that means. But it's about you're going to have the ability to cope with those. If you're not resilient, or if you lack competence or confidence, you'll display what we call flight or fight behaviour. Flight behaviour, folks, is quickly look around people around you, ask each other what flight behaviour is. Flight behaviour is trying to avoid it. And we avoid it in so many ways. We avoid it by telling stories that aren't quite correct. We avoid it by not addressing issues. We avoid it by hoping issues go away. We also have fight behaviour, which is the aggressive stuff. But we know, and there's another one, of course, called the freeze. We're not quite sure what to do. But I want to say to people listening to me, especially the blokes, the flight or fight behaviour is not sustainable. Not sustainable. Some people I work with, and look, if those know me, know I'm fairly robust. You know, we all like having a drink, some of us, and if you do, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine too. But that's not the strategy. That's not the strategy of which how we deal with this stuff. Does that make sense? So it's a stimulus response. We've got to start giving you skills, and that's what we're trying to do with Lessons Learned, these series of webinars, and we hope you're getting something out of it, about how we actually move you to a problem-solving model. And this is how we do it. We start working with you on a thing called the resilient mindset. Now, a resilient mindset consists of a number of comments, a number of elements, and again, we promise to make webinars around each of these. It's about accepting yourself and others for who you are in the situation you're in. There's no question, I guess that's a bit stereotypic. I work with people, and quite often when we're going through change or problems in our life or challenges, we tend to focus on stuff we can't control. Makes sense? That make it ring familiar for anyone? We can control as opposed to what we can't control. Part of this is accepting yourself for who you are and then what you can and can't control. The next part of the resilient mindset is what we call listening to the little voice. Not the little voice that says kill them all, but rather having what we call positive self-talk. About how you talk yourself through change. And I want to do a bit of an exercise with you in a moment on that. Understanding your buttons, what presses your buttons, and how you respond. What are your reactions to the stress that these situations cause? And again, you've heard this, and I think it's right. It's not so much the issue that's the stress, it's how we choose to respond to those particular issues. That makes sense? I mean, I'll be really interested later on to have a conversation with people about whether that's right or wrong. I mean, is the lack of rain... in fact, I'll tell you a story. Let me tell you a story. I was up at just outside Wagga Wagga, and I was talking with this particular client, and he was saying to me, Dennis, look, mate, if it starts to rain, then it'll be okay. It'll be okay, you know. We'll all be able to find our voice, you know. We'll all be able to sing "You're the Voice," you know. But that's not the case at all. I said, mate, the challenge for you is whether it's going to rain or not. You've got to start thinking about how you're going to be a good farmer, how you're going to be a good business person. You know, up in Darwin here, we've got a few issues up here, and I had a similar conversation with someone this afternoon. It's not. It's that particular button has happened. Is now we've got to come up with a strategy for how we're going to deal with it, and what our reaction is going to be. Empathy, a key skill. We want to talk a lot about empathy in one of our. You know, how do we view life through the eyes of others? How do we actually understand why people do what they do, and how that affects us? Moving on, communication, critical skill and resilience. How do we actually communicate in an assertive, robust way, and how do we give actually feedback to and receive back from? In an adult to adult, not parent to child. Having robust decision-making mechanisms, and there's a lot of material I want to share with you on decision-making. I want to share some of the material that we use around Edward de Bono. I'm sure some of you people have probably done the de Bono stuff, and if you haven't, I'd recommend you read it, and we can certainly contact us and we can give you some really good references. We can give you some references about the brain and how the brain works around this decision-making stuff. It's about dealing with mistakes. It's about dealing with successes and knowing what you're good at. It's about being reinforced in the environment you're in. And I want you to look around your environment right now and tell me the environment you're sitting in right now, does it send you out positive messages or negative messages? And if it does, if they're negative, what are some of the things we can do to actually change those, and critically following through and maintaining a resilient life? In terms of resilience, this is where I want you to start thinking about yourself. And look, share this with your person next to you, or write down a little note to yourself, or if you want to talk to me about this later on. You've got to take responsibility. Part of this responsibility is understanding your mindset, you know, and getting your and having a thing we call behavioural flexibility, and knowing what you've got to focus on to be successful. But you've got to go through a certain stage. And in my experience of working with people on this resilience stuff, and the stuff that our coaches do, is understanding where people are. And there are 4 stages in how you cope with the resilience. First one is what we call the stage of dependence. And they're the people who say to me, Dennis, I'm feeling like this because of that. It's cause and effect. It's cause and effect. You know, like my friend down at Wagga Wagga. I'd be a good farmer once it starts to rain. Mate, it may never start to rain. If you want to be a farmer, then you've got to start to think about how you serve your businesses. The accountants who are listening to me, I'll be a better accountant once we get more clients, or once we, it's something else. It's because of, and it's stage 1, and it's what we call the stage of dependence, that I'm dependent on something else happening. It's cause and effect. What we've got to try and work with you is, in terms of improving up these stages, is moving you up to a stage. And the next stage, whilst it's not a very positive stage, I think it's, not an enjoyable stage to work with. I think it's a natural stage for people to go through with this. I call it the dependence with rebellion. And I'm okay. I'm just going to tough it out. Leave me alone. And the blokes that I work with, they say, I don't want to talk about it, Hoiberg. You know, I don't want to talk about it. So leave me alone. You know, I'll tough it out. What they're also saying to me is, look, can you help me? But in a different way. So where are you? Are you at that stage in your resilience? Are you at that stage looking after yourself in terms of, you know, looking at your partner and saying, no, I'm going to look after myself as opposed to him or her? You know, and I think it's a natural stage to go through, and it's a stage of maturity, and we all got to go through it. But my advice to you is, don't spend too much time there. Next thing is the stage of acceptance. This stuff about resilience is real, and I'm starting to take responsibility. Take my responsibility for myself. You know, understand that the person who's going to make this change is me. And can I tell you, folks, that if you can work with us, and we'll give you some of these tricks about resilience, change can happen in a moment. It can actually absolutely happen in an instant. I used to believe change took a long while. It doesn't, but you've got to have the right strategies and resources, and they're the types of things that we're very keen to work with you. Wouldn't it be cool? Wouldn't it be great if I could give you 3 or 4 strategies to work at an individual level, or a family level, or a team level, or an organisational level, or a community level, that you're going to achieve change just like that? Well, you can go to communities where that happens. You can actually go to communities right now in Australia and see that happening. And it's because people are starting to accept that this stuff is real. And the last stage is taking responsibility for looking after yourself, your family, your mates, and your business. But that implies that we become an adult. You know, that we actually, and look, I'm not having a crack at anyone, but there are many people I work with who I love working with them, but they're kids. You know, they're still, you know, they're not responsible. They're here for a good time, not a long time. You know, and look, they're great people to work with, but gee, they're frustrating. They're frustrating. You know. So what stage are you in? Look around the people with you, and now either say, depending on your relationship, of course, if you're in the pub listening to this, I suggest you don't do that. But you know, what stage are you in? And look, let us help. Let us come and talk to us. Come and talk to GRDC. Come and talk to ORM. Come and talk to us. Come and talk to some of the other providers I work in this space with. You know, most people I work with in the provider space actually want to help you out. If you're a small business person, if you're a farmer, if you're a financier, if you're an academic, if you're a researcher, if you're a salesperson, if you're a product specialist, we're all here to provide this service to you. Yes, Roger. Well, what we're here to do, mate, is work with people through this. So just think about that. Just think about some of the strategies. And part of that stage too is how do you talk to yourself? How do you think, feel, and behave about yourself? And look, I want to do a bit of a mental exercise with you. Think about who's listening to me has ever been through a good time in your life. When you've been through a good time, how's that feel? You know, How does that feel? How do you feel? How do you talk to yourself? How do you feel about yourself? How do you behave and how do you interact? Equally, who's ever been in a bad time in your life, a negative time in your life? Who's ever had self-doubts? Who's ever felt poorly about yourself? And usually when we're going through bad times, we're feeling poorly about ourselves, so we're thinking poorly about ourselves. And we're probably talking poorly to ourselves. We're talking poorly to ourselves. And because we're talking poorly to ourselves, we're also behaving poorly and we're interacting poorly. And because we're interacting poorly, we get the same thing back. People interact poorly with us. And it only reinforces our negative mindset. So what we try and do is give you the skill about how you think, feel, and behave. And do you think, feel, and behave yourself in positive terms or negative terms? And if it is positive or negative, are you able and willing to change? Because you are able and willing to change, then you can. But we work with people who, and I'm sure you do too, who are what we call the victim mentality. Who are victims and who don't want to change. I want to tell you something. One of the things I've learned in my experience, in my journey, that is the mind is 100% convincible. We just got to get the self-talk right, and out of the talk will become the behaviours, will become the interactions, which become the relationships, and that'll contribute to your resilience. Quick exercise, and then I think we might start wrapping it up. I want you to think about a major change or challenge that you'd like to achieve or face in your life right now. If you want, share it with the person you're talking to or listening to, or think about it in your own head. And think about that change. What do you hear yourself say? Do you hear yourself talk in positive terms or negative terms? Positive, I can do it. Negative, I can't do it. Negative, and if it is negative, is it realistic? If it is realistic, can it be reframed? Quick poll, how many people here listening to me are parents? Because if you're a parent and you've got kids, I reckon you're very good at this stuff. Because when our kids are going through a bit of a bad time, or say something negative about themselves, what we as parents will do is tend to reframe it. You know, I've got a lovely girl called, I've got 3 kids, but I love them all. Chloe, you know, sometimes we need to help refocus some of the things that she says. It's about reframing, and as parents, you're very good at it. My challenge to you is, who's doing it for you, who's doing it for your mates, who's doing it for your clients. How do we, here's a quick exercise, a quick technique I would like to give you in terms of a process of rewriting your life. I want you to quickly identify the situation, and I'll give you a bit of a tool in a moment, an excerpt from one of our workbooks. Identify the situation that create emotions in your life, you know. When those situations occur, what do you hear yourself say? What's your self-talk? And why do you reckon that is? And some people say to me, Dennis, I don't know and I don't care. I just know it to be here. You know, that's fine. Define your goals. What do you want to achieve? How do you want to react? Consider new scripts. When this happens, I will. Select and practice your new script. Anticipate possible obstacles. Action and assess the new script and change what's unsuccessful. There's a little script for you. It's one of the many that we'll use. Now, by the way, if anyone who's listening to me has ever gone through giving up smoking, then you've gone through a script like that. You've gone through a script like that, because that is the script of rewriting your life and giving up smoking. And there's a little workshop. You'll get these notes. There's a little example of exercise from one of our workbooks about what situation stress you. How do you react? What do I feel? What's your self-talk? Why do I feel that? The self-talk. What self-talk will you adopt? And how will I reward myself? The reward, folks, is what we call the come out, not your goal. The come out is what's in it for you. If you do this, how are you going to reward yourself? Reward behaviour. You've got to reward behaviour. Because the only way we're going to change behaviour is when there's something in it for me. That makes sense? You still there? At least 76 years are still there, which is great. Thank you. So finally, folks, in terms of your resilience, here's some practical skills I'd like to give you. Make resilience part of your life. It's not something you do when things go bad. I want you to every day wake up and say, right, this is what I'm doing. I'll give you a few strategies about what some of the things you need to do. Make resilience part of your life. Part of that is getting comfortable with feelings. Feeling sad, express it. Especially us blokes, feeling concerned, feeling vulnerable, express it. I know it's hard. I've been there myself. Look, in many cases, I'm still there. So I'm not trying to say this ain't me. It is. So it's about getting comfortable with feelings, and it's about having the courage. And the key word to me is the courage to ask the question, "How are you going?" And following up with the thing about, "I'm concerned for you, and I'm here to help you if you need me." And the key, I often say to clients say to me, "Oh, look, Dennis, I didn't want to be involved because I didn't want to make them uncomfortable." No, it's not them being uncomfortable. It's not the person that's uncomfortable. They didn't want to make themselves uncomfortable. Care for your mates. We say we do. The question is, do you really? Give yourself a break. Is everyone who's listening to me got a holiday booked this year? One of the good things about my partner is that she insists on us taking a break, and not only for the relationship, but I thoroughly enjoy it because you get away. But it may not be a physical break. It might actually be just a time in the week you sit down on a Wednesday afternoon or a Friday night or whenever time, and you agree with your family or your work team or your mates that we're not going to talk about excuse me, we're not going to talk about the business for a moment. You've got to give yourself a break. Some of you people, a lot of people I work with in this space are what we call true believers. You truly believe what you do. Excuse my coughing. And even in the shower, you're thinking about what you're going to do in the day, or you've got to give yourself a break. And also talk yourself and your mates up. Sorry about those little men there. Talk yourself and your little mates up. Get good quality sleep. And I'm going to give you a reference in a moment about a site I want you to go to in terms of your sleep management strategies. And there's a lot of other strategies we can give you. Watch your kids. Look, some of the post-traumatic stress from the Canberra bushfires in 2003 were retained by the kids because the parents tried to be stoic. Let's not worry the kids. Kids know. Critically, though, I think parents, we need to let kids know that it's okay to fail. And it's okay to go through bad times, because bad times are part of life. This has only been brought home to me fairly dramatically recently, but, my dad was not my best friend. He was someone I respected and I was sometimes fearful of. You can't be your kids' best mates. There's a rough left message to learn, I think. Don't suffer from I wished I had done something syndrome, because there's two emotions that are going that can stuff that will muck around with your head, and that's guilt and regret. And the two spaces. I've just been asked the question: is it ever too old to learn resilience? My question to you is no. I just finished a workshop, a fairly intriguing, challenging workshop conference, where the eldest participant was 77 and the youngest was about 21. That 77-year-old had a lot of life experiences and could know. What I encourage people at that age to do is, that's why we know in their company lessons learned. Use your lessons to learn from other people as well as assist other people as. And you're only as, I was saying, you're only as old as whatever you are. Keep connected with the community. My question to you folks is, does everyone who's listening to me, do you have a connectivity with your community? Community saves. There's plenty of stories I can share with you in terms of some of the things, especially in our game. Get yourself involved in the community. And remember the need for emotional intimacy. There's a need that you talk with, share with those people I work with who have got that level of emotional intimacy. And it could be, hopefully, maybe with a partner, but it may not be with a partner. It could be with the community. It could be with a footy club. But there's somewhere you can go to where you can feel safe, where you can share. And you have that lifelong learning, the lifelong learning. And that's the other, I guess it goes back to the previous comment about, are you ever too old? No, you're never too old to learn. It's about that lifelong learning. And remember the need for emotional intimacy, the ability to share, to view, to love, to laugh, etc. And if anyone has ever heard me talk face to face, and I say something else then, but I won't say it in this webinar. So, folks, finally, I'm going to start to wrap up now. If anyone is interested in our webinars, love to talk to you. Love to talk to you about our workshops. Love to talk to you about our CDs. I'd love to talk about some training presentations within your communities. and hopefully I continue, and I certainly intend to continue to work with GRDC and ORM and organisations of that ilk where I have the opportunity to go out and talk with communities. I feel very blessed to do that, but certainly we do want to offer coaching and support to individuals and families, and we do want to do this follow-up stuff. In terms of resources, folks, can I give you, on your slide there now is some excellent resource sites. You'll see a thing called moodgym.anu.edu.au. Can I encourage everyone to go on to that Mood Gym? It was 12 to 19. It's now up to about 20, up to age of late 20s. They just had some research back from the States from a collegiate university over there who had been monitoring the use of Mood Gym. And they've come back and said people have been using Mood Gym are 3 times less likely to display depressive symptoms. So that's a pretty powerful comment, I think. Mental Health at Work is one of our collegiate organisations. There's this next one, the Help Guide, sleeping.htm. There's some really good techniques about sleeping beyond blue. You know about Black Dog. CWAA is the Country Women's Association, one of the most innovative organisations in this space because they've got a lot of skin in it, I think. So please continue to support them. So can I just say thank you very much for listening. We've been going now, I think, for about probably too long. Some of you are saying probably for about 45 minutes. There's my contact numbers. There's my office number. There's my mobile number. There's my email, my website. There's my Twitter account. Please feel free to visit our website. It's going under a major review and rebuild right now. In a couple of weeks' time, hopefully it'll be finished, and we'll have a lot of resources on that. Oh, thanks, Greg. Hopefully we'll have a lot of resources there, and look, just keep in contact with us, will you? We prefer that we were able to. Thank you very much. Oh, thank you. Hopefully there's been of some value. And look, we're here for the long haul. You know. We're going to continue to provide sources, going to continue to work with organisations like Suncorp and GRDC, ORM for as long as they want us around. So that could be a short period, I know, but we feel privileged. So can I just say thanks for coming? Can I invite people to leave, I've just got a message, invite people to leave comments or feedback. Honestly, I don't know how to do that. Hopefully there's something on your screen that you can see. I will, apparently it takes about a day to a couple of days to get this recording done and the thing sent out. I've made the executive decision that we will send it out to all the people on the webinar. If that offends someone, I'm sorry about that, but it's probably better to do it. I also need to probably apologise to a few people who got more than one email from me in terms of joining instructions. I had a bit of a technological problem over the weekend, so I made the decision far better for people to receive 2 emails and then not be left out of the loop. But happy to continue conversations. There's my mobile number. And if you want to give any feedback, please feel free to send it to either on this website or go to admin@orm.com.au. And that'll go straight to them, and I would very much like to hear your feedback. So thank you very much. Thank you, very, very useful. I appreciate that very much. I feel humbled with the opportunity to talk with you. I do hope we can continue our relationship together. And can I just say thanks a lot. Have a great week, and we will talk soon, I hope. All the best. Bye-bye.